Similar to how I did a comparison of my Japanese maple varieties, I thought I'd do a comparison of my few elms that I have. I'm quite new to elms, but I do have a few. And here they are. I have 3 of them. And on the leftmost part of the line there, right here, is the leaf from the elms around my neighborhood. I don't think they're Siberian elm. I think they're maybe American elm. So you can see the size of that. And I'll show you the tree that this came from. It's my neighbor's tree. And that smaller tree with the wagon by is a plum tree, but behind it is the elm in my neighbor's yard. So it grows, it's pretty tall, and it's right next to my yard. So as a result, I get a lot of small little seedlings popping up in my yard. So I have no shortage of elm material. And elm is great for bonsai. And one reason here that I've heard a lot about, so this is the elm leaf. Next to it is seedlings almost surely from that elm that I've been training for a couple of years. I manipulated the trunks a little bit with wire, and just this spring I planted them in this tiny little 4-inch pot to create this group planting, which I really like. And you can see that the leaves have reduced quite a bit, and that's one great thing about elms, the leaves reduce. So here's the full-size elm leaf and the leaf that's been reduced as a result of being trained for a bonsai. And I imagine as I continue to prune this tree and ramify it more, that the leaves will continue to reduce. And they're tough trees. They haven't really missed a beat being planted in this tiny pot. So that's my first elm. I don't know the species. Quite sure it's not Siberian elm, probably American elm. So next to it is also a mysterious elm in that I don't think anybody really knows the species. This is a Jacqueline Hillier elm. It was found in an English garden. I think perhaps it was Hillier's garden that they found it in, and they don't know the species of it, but it's become a very popular tree for just not just bonsai, but I think landscape in general as an ornamental. So you can see how small the leaves are compared to this just generic elm. They're quite a bit smaller, and it's a great tree. It seems really tough. I've had it for 2 years now, and I plan to keep it small because with the small leaves you can have a small tree and it looks in scale. And I don't plan to prune it severely at all or bend the branches with wire. It looks like an elm that I'd see around my neighborhood, and I like it that way. So I put it in this larger pot to grow out for a little bit, but eventually I will put it in a smaller bonsai pot after maybe in a year or 2, after I've let it run for a couple seasons to thicken up that trunk, which is still quite small now. And finally, my final elm is a Chinese elm, and there's a lot of different varieties of Chinese elms. This is Seiju, and I just got this tree this spring, and I repotted it out of season. The leaves had already emerged, but I thought I think it'll grow better if I just get it into a better substrate that I don't have to worry about watering correctly. And it did not miss a beat. So I can see why these are recommended to beginners. It seems to be very tough. And this tree in particular, Seiju, I'm really impressed with. It's a dwarf, but it is growing really well. It's put on quite a bit of growth. So one drawback to dwarf varieties that you hear about bonsai use is they don't grow as much as the generic varieties, so you can't train it as much and just have to wait and let it grow before you can manipulate it. But this seems to grow quite a bit. And like the elm beside it, it's just that characteristic elm shape of the trees I see in my neighborhood, which I like and I'm gonna keep. And I got this tree because I already liked the primary branch structure. I thought it was very pleasing to look at, and I don't plan to cut off any major branches. One other great thing about elms for bonsai is you can see the profuse back budding that you can get. So I pruned this branch this spring right here. It was fairly large and huge. I pruned another one on it too that was really big. And I got a ton of back budding, which actually will create some reverse taper if I don't do something about it. So I should perhaps, reduce some of the shoots in this area. But like I do for me and my trees, I just let it grow and appreciate it for what it is. And it has a good nabari too, which is why I got this tree. But again, this is Seiju, and I guess what I want to do now is just to show the great variation in leaf size. So back to this leaf from my neighbor's tree. And so here again is the neighbor's tree, unreduced, with reduced leaves on a tree in bonsai training. Here's that leaf with Jacqueline Hillier elm, and here's that leaf next to the tiny foliage of the Seiju, which is tiny. So even though I only have limited experience with elms, I'll just add my, not that I need to add it, but I'll just add my testimony that this is a great species for bonsai. I think it's great for beginners. They seem to be really tough and have a lot of great characteristics for bonsai training.